going to do a review on a primer that I found throughout my relationships with other modelers and whatnot, and watching a lot of videos. And you know, I'll just start from beginning here real quick. I've been in the market for a primer that reacts like a spray can primer, like your plastic coats, your Duplicolor. It's sandable, it sands off in sheets of powder, it wet sands good, you know, and all those things. But I've always yearned for a acrylic primer that I could spray through an airbrush that reacts the same. I don't have to spray a whole lot of it, it doesn't stink real bad. And to this date, there's never been anything even close to matching those types of primers. Now, Vallejo had their, is it their polyurethane, or let me see here, I've got a bottle here. It is a, yeah, polyurethane. Vallejo had their polyurethane primer, and most people just hate the stuff because it's much like the Createx and other vinyl style, I call it vinyl, primers. You try to sand the stuff and it just rubs off like in little bits of eraser. It leaves a sharp edge, it doesn't feather, it doesn't sand, you know. So, you know, the modeling world, especially us car modelers, we've been just crying out for a airbrushable primer that doesn't stink, but yet has the properties of a spray can primer. I mean, that sands smooth, it's very powdery in its sanding abilities. You can wet sand it, it doesn't bother it, and you get these super just wonderful sanding capabilities out of a primer. Well, as far as I can see, after ordering this latest product, I think our prayers have been answered. And that is the Stynylrez from Badger. It's a product called Stynylrez. I've been playing with the stuff quite a bit. I've watched a lot of reviews, I've read a lot of comments, I've watched other videos, and it was enough to convince me to try it myself. And I'm here to say it's a fantastic, airbrushable, non-stinky primer that rivals Plastic Coat, Duplicolor, and all those guys. You know, we've been waiting a long time for something like this to come along. And I'm happy to say that I think this is a solution. I think this is, they've nailed it. I mean, I got to give props to Badger. They put their research in, they know what we want, and they've nailed it. All right. Now, I'm not going to show any footage of spraying and priming and sanding, and I'm not going to do all that because there's some videos out there on YouTube that show it in depth, show the capabilities of this primer. I would highly recommend watching DaBasement modelers videos. He did, I think, a 3-part series. He put it through its paces, every bit, you know, sanding, painting over, as far as drying, the whole 9 yards, and thinners, you know, everything. So I'm not going to go through all that. Just watch his videos, and I'll put his link in my, I'll put his link to his videos in my description just down below. But right now, as it is, it comes in 3 colors. It comes in a white, a black, and a medium gray, which was designed to be right in between. So you've got all your options. Of course, you can mix and match to get the color primer you want. Now, as far as thinning it, they recommend that you don't thin it. Or, well, I don't know if they recommend you don't thin it, but they say it doesn't need to be thinned. Well, it's pretty thick, and it's quite thick to be sprayed through an airbrush. Unless you're using a Pasha H with the number 5 or a Pasha VO with the number 5, you know, a big number 5 needle. Most guys that have airbrushes these days, especially people that are doing fine work like on tanks and whatnot, they're running, you know, 0.2, point whatever needles. I would recommend at least having a 0.3. I have a 0.32, I believe, needle in my Badger Chrome. airbrush, you're going to have to thin it out a little bit. Now, here's the beauty of this stuff. You know, you can use just about anything to thin this with. You can use water. You can use the, what I've been using is the acrylic, Tesser's acrylic thinner. If you want to use your own little concoctions with, you know, Windex and this and that, the stuff, here's the beauty of it. It takes it well. It still dries the same. It still sands the same. That's the beauty of this paint. And that's the beauty of a good paint, is what I've realized over all these years that I've been airbrushing acrylic paints, is that it's not so much how the paint sprays or what it looks like. I found that the most respectable, most reliable paints are ones that can handle abuse. You know, they can handle being thinned with really crazy mixes and all these different things, you know, stuff you really shouldn't be thinning it with or shouldn't be able to. If the paint can still handle that, that's a popular paint. It's going to be very popular and it's going to work great. And Stynylrez is one of those that it can handle it. It still retains its properties. It doesn't turn into a rubbery coating. It doesn't go through a situation where it doesn't dry or it sprays like a dirt, you know. It sprays like sand onto your model. You can, within reason, you can use just about anything to thin these with. Now, I would highly recommend using an acrylic thinner or just use some water. You know, 20%, 30% maybe will get you through most of your common airbrushes, your non-superfine HPC Iwatas and whatnot. But if you're spraying a car model body, you don't need to be using that type of airbrush anyway. You know, you're using an airbrush that's designed to spray very fine details. So check it out. You know, go find it if you can. Right now, it's so popular that pretty much everywhere you can buy this stuff is sold out. And they've taken, you know, right now they're trying to produce as much product as they can for the European market, and then coming back to the American market. I found mine on eBay or Amazon. Amazon is one of their prime sales places, believe it or not, for Badger. And I think I got the last set of paints that they had available at that time. So it might take a little while to get the stuff, but I would highly recommend it. And I would highly recommend watching DaBasement Modeler's review. He does a very good review, and it's very accurate and very, it shows the product very well. Fantastic. I believe that if they can get this stuff out there and get it bottled up and get it out to everybody who's looking for a non-stinky airbrushable primer. I mean, primer's meant to be sanded and you know, used like a primer on a real car. I think this stuff comes as close as you can get as far as I've seen so far. It doesn't take a real long time to dry. Now the Vallejo, man, you've got to wait, you know, days for that stuff to dry enough to where you could potentially sand it and get a good, you know, good feathery finish. This stuff doesn't take that long at all. I mean, it doesn't take any longer than the spray can primers. I mean, you wouldn't wait 20 minutes after you've just spray can primed with some Duplicolor on a model and then try to sand it. It's going to be kind of wet or dark and cold, and you know, it's not going to sand correctly. So you do have to give it time, just like you do any other primer. But it fits right in that same time frame as the spray can primer. And I'm totally blown away by the stuff. It's fantastic. I think they've hit something. They've just nailed it on the head with the Stynylrez. So guys, be on the lookout. Stynylrez primer. Find you some, or be on the lookout. Be looking for it. I think this is going to be, personally, I think this is going to be quite a game changer as far as acrylic primers go. I mean, there's nothing else like it. And thanks for watching. I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.